There are few among us who do not hold within them some experience which time cannot erase. For some, that experience is a woman, and for Burke Hardison, that woman was Lydia. Now, Burke met Lydia one rainy evening in the early spring of 1923, as he was driving home to High Point after a long night with friends in Raleigh. After only a little while on the road, he noticed the air had grown thick with an unusual fog and an aura of uncertainty that he couldn't quite place. There had been no other cars for miles, which certainly didn't ease the strange feeling that all other life had ceased to exist, save himself. As he neared the highways of the underpass, he found he was no longer alone, as the slight, graceful figure of a woman appeared at the mouth of the underpass in front of him. Dressed in a flowing white evening gown, she desperately flung her arm upward, signaling for him to stop. Even before he pulled to the side of the road, he knew she must be in some terrible distress. "Please, please, will you help me get to High Point?" she pleaded in a frantic, tear-laden voice. "I'm headed there now. I'd be glad to help you," Burke replied. A gust of fog entered the car as the girl slid in beside him. For a moment, Burke caught the blur of a pale, beautiful face surrounded by a halo of cascading black hair. After giving him the address on a street he was vaguely familiar with, they drove in silence. But as they neared High Point, he felt he must know more about her, and began to ask questions. Her name was Lydia, and if she said more than that, it faded into the fog. Her words seemed almost detached, and so faint he could barely hear them over the motor. "Why do you question me?" she suddenly asked. "Nothing is important now but that I am going home." Burke dared not ask more questions after that, so nothing more was said. Oh, God. So close. I missed a spot back and then...
Go back, we'll re-edit.
Yep. As they neared High Point, he felt he must know more about her and began to ask questions. Her name was Lydia, and if she said more than that, it faded into the fog. Her words seemed almost detached and so faint he could only hear them over the motor with the greatest effort. Gradually, he gathered that she had attended a dance that evening in Raleigh. But what had happened or how she came to be standing alone in the fog, she could not or would not tell him. "Why do you question me?" she suddenly snapped. "Nothing is important now but that I am going home." After that, Burke dared not ask more questions, so nothing more was said. He found the street that she had given him, and there stood the house on the corner just as she had described. He pulled in, got out, and went to the side of the car to help her out. But as he opened the passenger side door, a wave of shock ran through his body as he realized the car's interior was empty. His companion was gone, and there was no sign of her ever being there. Such a chill ran through him that he slammed the car door and wrapped his coat close around him. Racking his brain for an explanation, he thought maybe she slipped inside the house without me knowing. He knew he had to find out. It was several minutes before his knock at the front door was answered, and it was not Lydia who opened the door when it was. Instead, it was an old woman with grief in her eyes. "My name is Burke Hardison. I just brought your daughter home, but she seems to have disappeared. Is she here?" The woman didn't reply for a good minute. Burke could see the bright shimmer of tears welling up behind her glasses. "Are you trying to play some cruel joke on me?" she asked. For a moment, Burke stood startled, but then quickly explained how the young girl stopped him at the underpass and begged him for help. He then told how he arrived at the address only to find that she had disappeared. "I had an only daughter named Lydia," the woman finally replied, tears now sliding helplessly down her cheeks. "She was killed in a car accident near the underpass as she was coming home from a dance. This is not the first time people have tried to help her home, but somehow she never quite gets here. Now, the next time you see a hitchhiker, be kind. You never know what their story might be."